Welcome to Everything All Right, the literary talk, where my guest today is S.E.Lynes, or S.E.Lynes. Her new book is out now and is called The Ex. So love them or loathe them, we all have one. So it's a fantastic title. And welcome, Susie.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
You're most welcome. Tell us about The Ex.
Well, The Ex was inspired by a newspaper story, which I won't go into because that would spoil everything, but it starts in April 2021, just as Britain is coming out of the big lockdown, the period of the big lockdowns. And it's a guy who sees his ex-girlfriend walking across the beach, and she's half hidden by a wall, and he gets a very sort of stressed feeling because he left her just as Britain locked down in March 2020, or just as the world really locked down. And he hasn't seen her or had any contact with her since. And as she emerges from behind this wall, this sort of half waist-high wall, he sees she's pushing a baby in a stroller. And he's wondering whether or not to make a dash for it and sort of try and pretend he hasn't seen her, but she sees him and she waves, and he knows that he has to go and say hello. And when he does, he sees that this baby has blue eyes and blonde hair like his.
Oh my God. I suppose we all have some wall that divides sort of pre-pandemic with post-pandemic, so it's a very timely story. But let's go further back than 2021. Let's go further back into your life. So how did you get into writing? Tell us.
I got into writing because, well, I used to work for the BBC, and I did sort of write some of the scripts there from time to time, but I got to Britain on the back of 5 years living in Rome, and I had a 1-year-old child as well as my 5- and 6-year-old child, and my children went to school. 2 of my children went to school, my husband went to work, and I was just here in a new house without any friends and without a job all of a sudden, and just nothing. And looking back, I was going through a really hard time, and I went to the doctors because I think, looking back again, I was probably suffering from anxiety. And I went to the doctors, and oh my goodness, I can't even believe this was me, but I said, oh, it's my husband's birthday and I should really be giving him a party, but I don't know people very well, and I don't know really what he wants and whether he wants a party, but I just feel too nervous. And I just, it was terrible. And she started to write something down, and I thought, well, this is going to be Prozac, or it's going to be the name of a counselor or something like that. And she gave me this piece of paper and she said, this guy's really good. He does Thai fusion. He did my husband's birthday party. And I was like,
of a party organizer.
Yeah, I was just like, so I sort of staggered out of there in a daze, but already I was thinking, even I know it's not about the buffet. And then my mom was brilliant, because she just said, there's nothing wrong with you. You need a job, you need to do something, and your brain needs to do something. And I just found this writing course, and it was called How to Write a Novel in a Month by the amazing Sarah Bailey, who's also a novelist. And it was all about writing in great quantity and not worrying about the quality. And it was what I needed, and what a lot of creatives need, is somebody to take that critical id away and say, don't listen to that voice on your shoulder that tells you you're rubbish. Just write, and just write a lot. And that's what it was about. And it was about it banishing that voice. And I still write like that now. I still just plow forward with my first draft. And obviously now my first drafts are a lot better than they used to be. But I try and take that pressure off even now for it to be any good.
And how did you then get serious? How did you then make that transition, or that blend of quality and quantity?
Well, I just loved it. I loved it. And I in this novel in a month, I wrote the world's most dreadful novella about a woman who is stuck at home with children going off her head. Just put it out. And it was rubbish, but in the corner of that story was this other family and this other idea, and so I teased that out. And then I went on to do an MA, and I carried on I began to teach creative writing, and I taught creative writing for 10 years. And actually, when you teach it, you're constantly reminding yourself of all the things that you do but you shouldn't do, and the show don't tell, and all that stuff. So you're constantly reminding students of what you yourself should be doing. And then my debut, and then very small company came to the college where I was teaching, called Blackbird Digital Books, and they were looking for a thriller. They were looking for a novel, and they didn't need a synopsis because I'm rubbish at synopses, whatever they're called. And so I sent my first 3 chapters to them, and a week later, you know, that was it. They wanted it, and then Valentina did really well for such a small independent publisher, and that's when I caught the book caught the attention of Jenny Garris at Bookerchaw, and she approached me, and the rest was history. Is history, because I'm still with Bookerchaw and I absolutely love them. So.
And do you have an agent as well? How did you manage to procure one?
Yes, now then, my agent came a little later, and I think I felt that I wanted some guidance, and I wanted somebody to tell me I was on the right track and all the rest of it. So I spoke to a few agents, and I spoke to Veronique Baxter at David Hyam, and there was just a really nice fit there, and she was happy to represent me. So I haven't looked back there either. I really love having an agent, and she's just great with her advice. She'll say, you know, you're doing great, and I can run new ideas by her. And I've just sent her the first 3 chapters of my work in progress, and I always do that and say, this is the tone, this is the character, what do you think? And she will say, yeah, that sounds good. So in the last one, I have a character narrator in the X as a character narrator. And she said, I really like the character narrator, but are you sure that this character enters into the story later? And I knew that she had a key role to play in the story. So I was like, yeah, so she will just make sure that I'm not going off in the wrong direction. So yeah.
Sounds like a perfect partnership. But let's go back to the X. I mean, your writing and psychological suspense is notoriously full of twists and turns, and demands very sort of tight planning and plotting. Tell us how you do it.
I don't tightly plot. I write a long synopsis, and I have to do that now that I'm a professional writer. So I provide a long synopsis. My editor at Bookerchaw, Ruth Tross, is a genius, and so she will just say a couple of things quite gently. She'll say, make sure this narrative doesn't overshadow that narrative, and make sure you sort of keep your powder dry on this one. And then when I hand in the first draft, she will, for example, in the housewarming, which was a very big hit, I'm happy to say, she made one structural change that, as you know, because you're a writer as well, it caused like a massive domino effect. So it was a lot of work to make this change, because she said, you've blown your powder too early, and you've not made enough of it. So you need to make this revelation needs to come at the central midpoint reversal at 50%, and you've got it at 25 and you've wasted it. And she said, I know that's a lot of work, but trust me, that will make, and it made the book just so much better. And that's where editors and agents can really help you with your work. I know that Paula Hawkins with Girl on a Train, I think she worked for a year famously with her agent, and then another year with her editor after that for the genius that is Girl on a Train. And any writer that reads that can see that it is structurally it's very clever. So yeah, so it's a combination of a loose plot, and then you do your first draft, and then when you do your second, you know what you're supposed to seed in, or you have a look at where you've seeded certain things and make sure that you've seeded them properly so that they pay off. You know, a bit like a joke where you've got to make sure the banana skin is there in the first bit, because if somebody falls over it in the third bit, it's not very funny because nobody knew it was there. And obviously sliding on a banana skin is hilarious, as we all know.
But even as you call it, just writing a long synopsis is proper planning. So well done you. So who inspires your writing? Who's your favorite psychological suspense author?
I love Gillian Flynn. And when I was first writing, I wrote 3 novels, which were, I look back now and realize that they didn't know what they were and I didn't know what they were. And so I sat down to write a certain kind of novel, because I was trying to break through. And so I had a look at psychological thrillers because they seem to be quite popular. And when I read Gone Girl, I realized that I'd always loved psychological thrillers because I was a big fan of Daphne du Maurier. I was a big fan of Rebecca, and I think a lot of psychological thrillers writers will say that. Big fan of Barbara Vine. I was a huge fan of Pat Barker, who I know doesn't write thrillers, but she's Northern, and she writes quite working class characters, quite normal characters, and she uses her roots, and I wanted to use my roots and my heritage in my work. And then Gillian Flynn, I read Gone Girl as a dark comedy, because there's some absolute zingers in there. There's some really funny, dark humor. So I thought, right, I really love dark humor. So when I wrote Valentina, in Valentina, there's a lot of dark humor. Not in all my books, but I'll use it if I can. The Baby Shower has a lot of dark humor in it. The Ex less so, but a little bit. So that she's the one that really gave me permission to put humor in my work. So she's a big influence, along with, as I say, Barbara Vine and Rebecca. And it's just that slow burn type book, which is the kind of book that I write. I write a slow burn, so that by the time things start to go wrong, I think the reader is very invested emotionally, intellectually. They're very invested in these characters. So by the time the shit hits the fan, as it were, they feel it.
Yeah, I mean, Gone Girl, Rebecca, that's certainly standing on the shoulders of giants. It's fantastic. Describe us your writing day. Do you have any must-haves? Cup of coffee, light, your cat sitting next to your computer? What is it?
So I get up, walk the dog, and if I'm going to see one of my friends, I will see them then. So that keeps me sane, having a chat with one of my friends. And then I get back, always plan to go to the desk. Always remember I've still got to hang the washing out, which I put on before I walk the dog. So do that, and then I make myself a cup of coffee, and I try and take that cup with me to the desk. So I try not to make my coffee until I'm in a position to take it to the desk. And in the early days of writing, I used to not do any of those things. I used to do the writing first, and then I used to do tidying the kitchen, putting the wash on, because those things always get done. Whereas now I'll put the wash out. I might leave the kitchen till later, but I'm very, very keen to get to my desk and get the writing done. So I will usually hit the desk at about 11, 10:30, 11. And then I usually come up for air at about 2, 3. And then I'll go back, and I'm usually there again till about 4 or 5. And not all of that time is spent writing, but I can't seem to do it any other way. I just have to have my bottom on the chair. And even if I'm just noodling around with something I've already written, and then I'll maybe push to write another bit. The first draft is the hardest, as you know, when you're getting that first. So I tend to write in a sort of coil shape. So I'll go back and noodle around, which I love doing, and then I'll go forward, and then I'll noodle around a bit, and then I'll go forward. And eventually, so what I end up with is a first draft that's sort of been polished like that along the way. That's how I write my books, just like that. I'll perform it for you. I'll perform it in a dance idiom.
This is like in the original Karate Kid, where he teaches him to clean the car because it's a karate move. Is noodling around. Is this your top tip for novelists?
It's really weird because I know I'm going that way, but the camera's, it's very strange.
So do you think this is your top tip for anybody who wants to be a writer, for nascent novelists? Susie's gone. All right.
I wish it was this. Fortunately, it isn't.
So what is your top tip for anybody who wants to be a writer?
Top tip is not to worry if it's rubbish, and just keep on going and get the rickety shed up. So just keep going, get something, because it's much easier to work on something that's already there. So get rid of the blank page, just get rid of it, and leave anything you believe you have to do, leave all your jobs till later. Leave stuff till later, because the dinner will have to be cooked because people have got to eat, and the crumbs will have to be removed from the bar, and the hoovering will have to be done at some point, and they are the things that you will do. But your writing is the thing that won't get done. So don't think, I'll do my writing later. Just do it now. Just do it now, and do the rest later. That's it, really.
How are you dealing with a blank page at the moment? What is next for you?
I'm pushing forward in my spiral way. I'm excited by my character. I've been reading about clowns and how clowns, how clowns are people so clowns are beings who are desperate to get it right. They're desperate to get it right, and in trying so hard to get it right, they get it wrong. And so that sort of was a light bulb moment for me, for the character that I'm writing, and that sort of created some intellectual sort of satisfaction for me for this character. And so I'm writing this woman who is quite lonely, and she's a bit starved of affection and attention, and it's also, there's a slight influence there of a David Mamet play, I think it was, where a middle-aged woman dressed up in stars and stripes and had a bandana and a hat, and I think she did a dance for her husband, and he didn't take any notice, and it made me cry. So I'm working on a sort of clown-ish inspired character, and it's set in Spain, and it's bad things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen.
I like the sound of it already.
It's based on something that actually happened, which is I bumped into a university friend who I used to live with after 32 years. I hadn't seen her for 32 years, and I bumped into her while I was on holiday last year. So that's the nugget of inspiration for this book. Is about a woman who bumps into not a friend, but somebody that was like the coolest girl in the year at uni, and she had a massive crush on her at uni, as did her husband. And so it's about the impact of this person they didn't really know on their marriage.
And that's really the end of our talk, and we're just coming to the 5 faves, Susie. So very, very quickly, without thinking, what's your favorite movie?
Gosh, favorite movie. Yikes. Oh, I'm so bad at these things. Oh, I'm so bad at them. I love Bridesmaids. Love a film called Don Juan de Marco, although I've not seen it for years.
Only one.
Almodovar. Anything by Almodovar. Volver by Almodovar.
Only one film.
What?
What is your favorite movie, not movies? So what's your favorite book, please? Sorry, I'm scolding you. What's your favorite book?
Bridesmaids.
Book? Favorite book?
Oh. Or maybe. Say.
Do you have a favorite song or a favorite music score?
I always listen to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On.
Favorite food?
Pasta.
The favorite travel destination?
Probably where I've set my book, which is Cadaqués in Spain, or Rome, Italy.
Okay, well, those 5 faves went really well. Thanks for listening and watching Everything All Right. My guest today was S.E.Lynes, or Susie Lynes, and we talked about her current book, The X, published by Book Couture, ordered online. There it is. I don't have a copy, but you know, I love Susie's work, so I can vouch for it. Even so, it's published by Book Couture, ordered online, or get it by your independent bookseller. I'm Ellen Alpsten. Subscribe to Everything All Right, and listen and watch us next week. Thank you so much, Susie. And now when I count to 3, we can both do the side thing, okay? 1, 2, 3. Bye-bye.